Hey everyone, this is the F250 with a 7.3 diesel engine that I diagnosed it with the Flexplate being broken. So I wanted to show you how I took it out. The first thing that you need to do is disconnect the batteries or disconnect the negative battery on each side to get the power off from it. And then you'll go underneath the vehicle and work on getting the transmission back. Now, you do not have to remove the transmission totally. I left almost a lot of the things hooked up. Basically, how I took it out was I took the drive shaft out, or at least I unbolted the center where the bearing is, dropped it down. I did not disconnect it from the rear, but I did disconnect from the rear of the transfer case because this is a four-wheel drive. So I laid the transmission or the drive shaft down on the ground, and then if your front shaft is connected, you'll need to take out the front shaft that's going to the front axle. And then after that, you'll need to remove the starter. Okay, remove the starter so it gives you easier access. Now, whenever you start unbolting the bolts from around the flywheel or the flex plate, you know, the bell housing bolts, you can take most of them out. Leave one in on the side just to keep it from moving, and then get you a jack underneath it like this. And then I took a board and supported it between here and the cross member, which there's a lot of weight on the back because it's transfer case. I did not remove that, but I did remove the bolts from the cross member on both sides. I'll show you right here. Here's the other side where I let the bolts go. And then after that, I took the cover off to access the flex plate, and I took the torque converter bolts off. Once I did that, I supported the whole assembly and went ahead and took that other bolt out of the bell housing up there, and I started pulling the transmission back. Now, I did make sure that, you know, like my cooler lines didn't stretch too much. They still have a little bit of slack left in them. As far as the electrical lines, there was plenty of slack in all the electrical lines to not have to take any of that off. And I basically slid the transmission back. You can see right here that the transmission did come down and back a little bit, where it allowed me to have that much space between there. There's probably about 4 inches or so. I used a pry bar to pry back the transmission to get it away, and then once I got it back far enough, I was able to get to the flex plate bolts on the rear of the crank. Now, it did take me a little while to get all those bolts out because I had to turn it a little bit at a time, because you couldn't turn it with the flex plate because it was completely broke. And I'll show you right here. Right here's the flex plate. This is what it looks like, where it's completely snapped off. So the flex plate was just sitting there spinning. So I had to turn one nut at a time. I actually used the crank with the socket to turn the crank over and get it to the very bottom, you know, of the truck. And then once it gets down here, I was using a rubber mallet, like that one right there, to hit the ratchet hard enough to force the nut to unscrew. Now, once it got loosened, I was able to get my hand up in there and spin it out with my hand. And whenever if there wasn't enough room, then I would just put a pry bar on the side and pry the transmission back a little bit. So then I just turned the engine over a little bit at a time using the socket and got all the bolts out. And as you can see, the mid plate came down whenever the flex plate came off, but I was able to remove it all. It really didn't take that long. I believe the book, the labor guide, says it takes like 8 to 10 hours, something like that. I've probably got about an hour and a half in it right now in real time. And so now the total job will probably take longer than that, because now I got to take that to the local parts store, see if they got the flex plate for it, put it back together. And then now, as far as alignment goes, you can see, well, it's kind of hard to see, but the crank has a alignment pin that comes out. Okay, so if you look up in there on the top side, on the back of the crank, you'll see an alignment pin. So whenever you see that alignment pin, you'll be able to put the new flex plate. You can see on the old one right here, where the alignment pin went right here. So you don't have to worry about, you know, where it goes whenever it comes off. If it's broken off, you don't have to mark it or anything, because that alignment pin is right where it's going to go back on. And then bolt it back up, get everything torqued down to specs, and then reassemble everything. Like I said, it didn't take a real long time to do it. I know most shops will probably charge you a day or two of labor to do it, but it is able to be done without removing the transmission totally out. Like I said, the lines, I checked all of them. There's nothing that's being stretched too far. The only thing, whenever I started pulling it back, I did have to drop the transmission slightly and back some more. The dipstick tube over there started to rub the firewall. You don't want to pull too hard on that, because it'll actually pop the dipstick tube out, and if it does that, you'll probably have fluid going all over the place, so be careful to not pop that out. Other than that, everyone, thanks for watching my video. I hope it helped you out today. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.